Hello, Texas Values friends. Thank you for bearing with us. Welcome to the Texas Values Report. And ironically, the Texas Values Report is not in Texas today. It's in Tennessee, the other T state with great pro-life policies. I have here with me the wonderful Melissa Ohden. Thank you so much for doing this very quick interview at this wonderful pro-life conference.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we have a lot that we're going to talk about on the show today, and our boss, Jonathan Sines, will do more at the end of the show, but we wanted to start off the show with something special. So this weekend, there's a pro-life, pro-women conference here in Memphis, Tennessee, that I'm thankful to attend this year on behalf of Texas Values and to be with other wonderful pro-life leaders like Melissa Ohden, Abby Johnson, Laura Mazika, many more names that you've heard before through us or through other avenues in the pro-life movement. And we've already had so many great speakers already. It's been very encouraging. But our very special guest today is Melissa Ohden. Now, Melissa Ohden has a powerful story. I mean, it's a story you just cannot beat. She's an abortion survivor. And you've heard stories like Claire Colwell's. Now, there's more people. And I learned from Melissa, there's about 11, you said, abortion survivors in the state of Texas. Now, she runs a wonderful company, a wonderful organization that helps those who have survived abortion and helps those women who have gone through the abortion process and making sure that they're healed. Melissa, tell us a little more about your organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have 11 survivors identified in Texas. You know, statistically, we know there are probably tens of thousands of abortion survivors in the United States. Oh, wow. You know, sadly, we know that not every time a survivor is born after failed abortion, they're not always provided medical care. We fight in the policy arena for that. But no matter what, survivors exist. The youngest survivor in our network is a year old. He was born at 25 weeks early on in the pandemic after his mom stopped the abortion procedure. We tend to hear that a lot. Some survivors come about that way. So born at 25 weeks because labor couldn't be stopped. The oldest survivor in our network right now is in their 80s. So we're talking people who survived prior to Roe and Doe. And I think that's important because those survivors carry with them a lot of shame that somehow because they survived, abortion was then legalized. So there are so many untold stories. Our network really exists to provide healing and social support to abortion survivors. We also do that for families. You're going to see more and more of that as we grow even more. We do retreats. So we did a virtual retreat earlier this year. We're actually going to be in Texas in Schulenburg. Awesome. At our first in-person retreat in July. So we'll have up to 30 women, female survivors there. We have survivors from around the world who wanted to come to this retreat because we are the only healing and support group for abortion survivors around the world. So that's what we do on that side. We also empower and equip survivors so they can be trained on how to, share their story, even if it's in a private conversation or yes, maybe the public stage. We give them skills on how do you contact your legislator? What's it like to advocate, right? How do these processes work? Because we live in a world that says we don't exist. So it's almost even more burdensome for survivors to find their voice. So that's a huge part of what we do. We also have what would be technically called a C4, so a policy side. So our voices can be heard. And I just testified last week, Senator Cruz, I'm a big fan, contacted me and asked me to testify against the Protecting Roe Women's Health Protection Act. I mean, I can't ever remember the exact acronym because it's not about protecting women's health anyway. So I was just on the Hill, and you will see more and more survivors on the Hill as we heal and are given a voice.
Wow, that's amazing. You hear that? She testified at the U.S. Congress. I mean, she's my hero. So that's amazing that you get people in contact with their legislators. That's something we try to do at Texas Values. We try to empower people to reach out to their legislators about pro-life policies. We just passed the heartbeat bill, and while our organization does research and testifying, it's so important that you as an individual reach out to people who represent you and you tell them that you want these pro-life policies. Now, Melissa, we've heard a lot about Claire Colwell and her survivor story. So what's your survivor story?
Yes. So I'm a little older than Claire. I'll be clear about that.
Not by much, I think, right?
A little bit. I have to age myself for, historical context. I'm 43, which of course means that my birth mother had a failed abortion not terribly long after Roe versus Wade. My birth mother fits a lot of statistics when it comes to abortion. She was in college, she was unmarried, and she was not just coerced, but she was literally forced to have the saline infusion abortion that should have taken my life. That procedure usually lasted about 72 hours, but we know through my medical records that I soaked in that toxic salt solution for 5 days. On the 5th day, they finally successfully induced Ruth's abortion, the labor procedure, and believed that I would be delivered dead. And that is the day I was accidentally born alive. My grandmother forced the abortion, was a prominent nurse, monitored the situation, was there when I was born alive, and demanded that I be left to die. We know through my records that I was left for at least a few minutes while arguments ensued. And ultimately, at least one nurse rushed me off to the NICU that day, unwilling to just leave me there to die. And I know that because I've had communication and now have relationships with some of the nurses who cared for me.
Wow, that's an amazing story, because not only does it show your survival, but also that even after you survived, there were attempts to actually really commit infanticide, which is, something that we addressed at Texas Values a few sessions ago with the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. A lot of people didn't believe that story. They said, of course, no one, is killing babies once they're born, but we're seeing that really is a story. But thankful for that nurse that had the heart to actually save you. And like we've been talking about at this conference, look at what you've become. All these wonderful babies can be saved, and they can become, the next generation. So we're very thankful for that nurse who definitely saved your life.
Yeah.
Now, you said you do a lot of policy work, or some
I do.
So, and that's something that we do at Texas Values. So if you can talk a little bit about the policy process to our viewers, because they're really interested in what it takes to advance policy, what it takes to fight for pro-life policy. And we talk a lot about Texas pro-life policy, but we know that there's a huge fight at the U.S. Congress, and sometimes they're a lot louder at the national level, especially the opposition. So just talk a little bit about that process and your involvement.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people stay engaged at the local and the state level. I think sometimes we look right at the landscape and we think, federal, row, which is absolutely true. But we cannot underestimate the importance of our voices locally and at the state level. And I think Texas is a great example of that. Texas always comes out with some of the most strong pro-life laws, and the rest of the country is watching. And certainly we know that there are cases thrown out to test the water a little bit, right? And whether you're pro-life or it's the other side who are watching it carefully to see what the temperature might be on that policy, it's so important. So, I always like to encourage people, always be in touch with your legislators at the local level, state level, through the federal government. If your legislator is pro-life, thank them. Thank them regularly. They do not hear that often enough. They hear all of the complaints, right? So they will remember you the most when you're thanking them. So thank them. You know what? If you have a legislator who is not pro-life, also don't be afraid to tell them that you're disappointed in how they're voting, that you are a constituent, that your voice should be heard. And so it's so important to be in touch. So sending things through the mail, do email, make phone calls, right? Do all the things. Do not be afraid of that. Because when it comes to policy, it's also so important that we are just so on top of it. I know it's hard, right? We are downloading information all the time in the world around us, but it's so important to be watching what is happening, because especially I see this at the federal level. A lot of people didn't know about that hearing last week, and you wouldn't hear those things. And so you have to be watching for hearings in support of pro-life, and also those that are being introduced against, being pro-life. And the opposition does a wonderful job of burying facts, burying narratives, And so that's so important. We almost have to work overtime to be educated and involved.
That's so very true. I think that even on our side, when we inform people, maybe not a lot of people knew about that hearing last week, but the other side can be very vocal in the media. Why do you think that hearing was so buried and not really presented in the media?
Because it was painful. There again, I kind of have to laugh about it after the fact, but it was about, they made it clear it was about not only protecting Roe, but expanding Roe. They said that numerous times in the hearing. And one of the questions that I posed to them multiple times was, how can the very act that was supposed to end my life simultaneously be my right to execute? That's why that case the hearing wasn't even really covered, because you have to answer that question. And we know what the answer is, right?
Right. Absolutely. That goes into another point. And, this conference is titled Pro-Life, Pro-Woman. The other side always tries to say, like you said, it's your right. So how can we actually change the narrative? How can we encourage more women? I mean, there are a lot of women here already in Tennessee. So I think we're winning and changing the culture. But what is your vision for changing the culture and making more women stand up for pro-life issues?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to healing. First of all, everybody has a story and an experience, particularly when it comes to abortion. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves and seek out the healing that it takes to then, be strong enough and have your voice and be empowered. And it really is about impacting future generations. That's one of the most exciting parts for me this weekend is my 13-year-old daughter is with me. My daughter, if we don't end this whole scourge of abortion, she's going to do it. It's so encouraging to see young women, and they are here full of joy, right? I mean, there are days that are so hard for me, but I take so much joy in knowing we're on the right side of truth and we're in this together. So it's just such an important place for women to be. We don't need to be silenced by the culture out there that says it's your choice and you're right. We need to not be afraid to stand up and say, no, you know what? I don't believe that. Life is the fundamental right.
Right. Absolutely. I think it just comes to standing up for truth, like you said. And we thank you for standing up for truth and the ministry work you do and your C4 work and your policy work and testifying in front of U.S. Congress and being a Ted Cruz fan. We appreciate that. And so we're at the end of the show. We're getting really close to it. I just have to ask, so you said you were familiar with Wichita Falls, Texas, which is my birthplace. So you're familiar with Texas. Just a little fun question to end the show. What is your favorite Texas-inspired food?
Oh, this is a hard question for me, actually.
The hardest one of the show.
This is hard. Okay, because I'm from Kansas City, folks. Do not hold this against me. So we can't really talk about barbecue.
Okay.
Right? That's
fair.
There's a little bit of throwdown. I mean, I'm a big fan of how Texans eat tacos for breakfast.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Well, there you have it. Texas Value Supporters, we have Melissa Ohden with us. We're so grateful for the work she does and just taking a quick break in this very busy conference to come talk with you guys and to keep you informed on the pro-life movement. Until next time, we hope you have a very good weekend and please support Texas Values any way you can. We've had several luncheons, several events throughout the state where you can learn more about the work we've done during this session for the heartbeat bill and other pieces of legislation. But we really appreciate you listening today and thank you so much for tuning in.